Hey guys, welcome back to D-Res Gaming News on Clownfish Gaming. This is Neon. We're going to talk about the Switch 2. The Nintendo Switch 2 price is not going to get hit by the tariffs. The accessories are going to go up, so good news. And I think this makes a lot of sense. I'm looking back at, I know the PS2, I think Sony sold it at a loss to get the install base up, and I think that's what Nintendo's going to do. They're going to try to, even if they're getting hosed on it, somewhat, they're going to make sure they get a lot of Switch 2s out there to sell you software and accessories later on. Plus, eventually the tariff thing, I think, is going to work itself out. Hopefully. Hopefully it is, because if not, everything's going to get a lot more expensive. But let's talk about this. So yeah, the announcement was made. It was actually on Nintendo's own blog that they're going to maintain the Switch 2 pricing. So people thought the Switch 2 was going to be $600, $650, and it turns out they're going to keep it at $450 and $500 if you get the Mario Kart bundle. But that's still pretty expensive for a Nintendo console, right? That's got to be like the most expensive Nintendo console ever. People are not happy about that. And I think Nintendo looked at that reaction. They're like, there's no way that we can charge, $600 for a Switch 2. So let's go out to Wired. The Nintendo Switch 2 price isn't going to get hit by the tariffs. Pre-orders for the console will resume next week at the previously announced price of $450, but accessories are getting more expensive. So Wired says Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders are back on, and while consoles will remain the same price, accessories will be more expensive due to Trump's tariff announcements. The company said today that pre-orders will begin next week, April 24th, and that the Switch 2 will remain $450 at launch, despite sweeping tariffs announced earlier this month by Trump that threatened to raise prices. People said that the Nintendo consoles were made in Vietnam. They weren't actually made in China. I don't know, but sometimes China sends stuff to other countries, as I understand it, to sidestep that. I don't know. The Mario Kart World bundle, which includes the console and game, will sell for $499.99. The game itself, as well as Donkey Kong Bonanza, will keep their original price tags of $79.99 and $69.99 respectively. We apologize for the retail pre-order delay and hope this reduces some of the uncertainty our customers may be experiencing. Yeah, I think a lot of people were going to hold off. I think they were going to hold off on buying a Switch 2 because they didn't know what it was going to cost. On April 4th, just 2 days after Switch 2 reveal, Nintendo announced that the unprecedented move of delaying pre-orders in order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. They said that they were doing that because they were actively assessing the impact the tariffs would have on the Switch 2's production and launch. Switch 2 accessories will experience price adjustments from those announced on April 2nd due to changes in market conditions. Again, a lot of times what game companies do is they will sell the console at a loss. And Sony has done this before. They'll sell it at a loss because they want the install base, and then they know you're going to buy games. So even if they sell you that console for $50, they're taking a $50 beating on that console. You're going to buy more games over the lifetime of your ownership of that console, and eventually the console price is going to come down. So I don't know if they're losing money. I have no idea if they're losing money. I know Sony has done that because you can't outprice a consumer. You can't say, hey, and I guess the PS5 just went up too. But you can't say, hey, we're going to drop this $1,000 console to make sure we make a profit on the console, because nobody's going to buy the games. Nobody's going to buy the console. And if you're like Nintendo, these people are going to have, there's the potential for the Switch 2 to last for another 7 years, 8 years or whatever, like the Switch 1. So yeah, that's a lot of games. Yeah, that's a lot of money on the table. So take the $50 beating or whatever, and get these things into as many people's hands as possible, so you've got revenue coming in for the next 7 or 8 years. The Pro controller was announced at $79.99. Now it's $84.99. Well, it's not terrible. The Joy-Con 2 is $94.99 as opposed to $89.99. Other increases include the dock set was $109. Now it's $119. Those aren't. They're not massive. They're not massive increases, right? The company also notes that other adjustments to the price of any Nintendo product are possible in the future depending on market conditions. No, they're going to make sure that they have a big launch, because if the launch is a failure, we're looking at another like Wii U situation with them. And then all the media is going to run with Nintendo Switch 2 launch, massive failure. And I don't think it's going to be. I think a lot of people are lined up waiting for this. I mean, you can think what you want about the pricing. I think the prices are fairly high, for a Nintendo console, but supply and demand, right? Supply and demand. So Trump announced Liberation Day tariffs on April 2nd, including baseline tariffs of 10% for all countries. He also raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 145%. But after China announced 125% tariffs on the U.S. in response, the White House said China could face up to 245% in tariffs on some goods. Some things are excluded. I know laptops and smartphones, I think, are, because his good pal Tim Cook. You don't want to piss off Apple, but I think this is going to be short-lived. I mean, it is causing pain in the meantime, because even we've talked about this before, and I'm not going to try to beat a dead horse here, but tabletop games in particular are getting hit. People have to buy components, to manufacture stuff here in the U.S. And if they can't buy the components from China, because we outsourced everything to China, then those prices are going to go up. There are some things that are only made overseas; they're not made here. So again, I think this is a game of chicken. I personally think it's only going to last a couple of months, because eventually China's going to feel the pinch too, because we're, America's like their biggest customer, right? So, eventually it's going to work out. But, in the meantime, it is going to hurt. It's going to hurt in the meantime. Trump said he threatened additional tariffs in other countries, though on April 10th, he said those would be paused. Yeah, they're basically renegotiating the deal. And, anybody who knows anything about Trump, who knows about Trump from, back in the days of The Apprentice, like it was all about the art of the deal, right? That's what he talked about. So he's renegotiating. Said other consoles. It said the U.S. and China are the largest games markets in the world, and tariffs would affect both countries differently. U.S. tariffs could mean an increase in price for American players, whether it's consoles or games themselves, for more than just Nintendo products. Sony and Microsoft may not have a new console lined up, but their hardware is going to be affected. Both companies are still heavily reliant on China, and that high tariffs will also raise the prices for PlayStation and Xbox consoles. Keep forgetting they still make Xbox consoles. He pointed to Sony's recent announcement that will increase prices by 25% for the PlayStation 5 in Australia, Europe, and New Zealand. That is going to hurt. There are indirect and knock-on effects for exchange rates, inflation, and broader macro impacts, regardless of whether or not other countries are directly affected by imports from China and Vietnam. Sony's price increases, he says, are likely a response to a future U.S. price increase, with the firm looking to spread costs, increases globally, and maintain margins. You know what some people are going to do? Even if they're not affected by the tariffs, they're going to raise their prices and be like, oh, it's the tariffs, everybody. Don't blame me, blame Trump. That's what they're going to do. They're totally going to do that. I have no doubt. You're going to use, that's like people are blaming the pandemic for things that didn't have anything to do with the pandemic. They will absolutely positively blame, I think they will blame, the tariffs for everything. So there we go, guys. Nintendo Switch, for now, you're safe. You still have to pay that $80 or whatever for, here are the prices if you want to look, come from GameStop. GameStop's like, oh, thank God. We were going to go out of business for sure. Switch 2, $449 with Mario Kart. $499. That's honestly, since that's about the only game worth playing at launch, that's probably your best bet. But those controller prices, man, ouch. Gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.